Good morning, everybody. I'm Kristin. I'm an alcoholic.
And Kristin.
Yeah, I'm a very nervous alcoholic today. And I've been giggling to myself for the last few days because a lot of people say that us alcoholics thrive on the attention and the affirmation. When you put me in the seat, I really don't feel like I thrive on it. Growing up, my mom always used to say to me that I was this wonderful speaker. I did drama at school, but when you put me in a seat like this, like my nerves take me over. So forgive me in advance if I'm a little bit all over the place, but I'm not here today to, like my sponsor said, not to make it about me. I'm here to make it about the people in this room, and try and share my experience and a little bit of the hope that I found in this program, and hopefully to share a message of some sort. My war stories are not important, although they have played a huge part in why I'm sitting in the seat today. But I'll start at the beginning. I'm a Durban girl, born and bred. I grew up in a very stable family. My parents are both here today, which I appreciate. I can only say that I grew up in a very stable home. 46 years later, my parents are still married. They brought us up in a very religious, spiritual home. They gave me absolutely everything that I could possibly want and need. I can't say that I've ever gone to bed hungry or not had clothes on my back. I had a good education. But I think growing up, and it's hard to say sometimes, but I felt separate and different from other people. And it's not necessarily of how I was growing up, it was me. I didn't always feel like I fitted in. I didn't always feel like the friends that I had accepted me and wanted me to be, I wanted to be that center of attention, but I never was. And that was difficult for me. But, I had a different sort of upbringing. The religious upbringing that I had, we didn't do certain things. And as a kid, it didn't really worry me. My family always compensated that with other things. Where I didn't celebrate certain celebrations, we had family parties that other kids didn't have. We did wedding anniversaries, which other parents didn't do for their kids. And then when I was quite young, I failed to remember, sort of 5 or 6, I suppose, my family invested in a property up in Underberg. And that was something that, for me, none of the other kids had, It was an absolute blessing. I grew up in this beautiful place. Every month we used to go up to the farm. And then when I was about 13, my dad invested in 2 horses. And makes me a little bit emotional because I've loved a lot of things in my life, but my passion for horses has always been there. And that's one thing that I felt was special in my life, I didn't have any interest in anything else. It was schoolwork, home life, and those horses that brought me so much joy. And I was very privileged to have that kind of upbringing, and something that I can't fault anybody on, because my differences of feeling like I didn't fit in were my own. And I grew up as a child. My brother and I were very close, and we drifted apart over time, as I think most siblings tend to do. And it wasn't always very easy to face that. But as kids, we absolutely thrived. I remember as a kid going down to the river and looking for icicles, and like little things that were important to us. And that was the upbringing that I had. I couldn't really ask for anything else except what I was given. My parents instilled strong values in me. I had absolutely no reason to do anything else in life. But I think growing up, eventually things started to change, and that it was that feeling of being alone, through no fault of anybody else's except mine, because it was my insecurities and my feelings that I've learned now today actually aren't real at all. I can sit in a room full of people like this and feel completely by myself, and that's just my stuff to deal with. And it's all mad. When I think about it, it's all completely mad, because there's a lot of people. I only have to look at the people in this room and realize that there's so many people who love me and care about me. And if I take it outside of this room, there's even more. I've got a very strong family bond, aunts and uncles and cousins, who there's a lot of love in that family. And yeah, so anyway, I grew up, and when I finished school, it was almost like a conscious decision for me that I wanted to be something else. I wanted to be rebellious, and I don't speak about this often, but yeah, it sort of gave me a sense of satisfaction and power to do what I wanted. Later on, when I was in treatment, my sponsor likened me to an adult version of her child, her daughter, because I couldn't see my willfulness, but I was very willful. Sometimes it was subtle, sometimes it was blatant, but I was willful, and I did what made me happy. And I failed to take into consideration the effect that it had on anybody else. And I think the moment that I really realized that when I was doing my step 5 in treatment was when I was going through my resentment list, and the resentment itself is not important, but it was brought to my attention, like when I was about 22, I think 23, I made a conscious decision to move out of home, against better advice and better judgment. I did that because I was doing what I wanted to do, and I took absolutely no consideration for the people that were around me, the pain that was causing to my family. And the reason that I did that was because when I was about that age, when I was about 21, I got into a relationship, and I made that person my God. It sounds terrible to say, but that was how he was to me. He was absolutely everything. I would give up my family, I'd give up my home, I'd give up all the religious values and principles that I had. And yeah, I lost contact with a lot of people because of that. And I continued with that relationship for a good 6 years, doing exactly as I pleased. Not really ever bearing in mind the kind of pain that was causing to other people. It was about me, it was about my pain and the pain that people were causing me, and blaming, and they weren't accepting of what I was doing, and basically my whole life was just about me, about how I felt, about how people were making me feel. It was like there was little Kristin in the middle and the whole world revolved around me, and it was how that affected me. I never stopped to take a minute to actually look at my actions and what they were doing to the people around me. And that caused me a hell of a lot of pain, but it was self-inflicted pain, and it doesn't even compare to the kind of pain and damage that I've caused to other people along the way. And that was a hard realization to come to in treatment, because it's so much easier to blame other people. It's so much easier to pick fault and make it about myself, and it's really, when it comes down to it, it's absolutely got nothing to do with me. My feelings and my insecurities and my wills, my desires are not really that important, although at the time they felt like that was it, you know. So after school, I'll just backtrack a little bit. I spent a year at university, and again, I didn't put enough effort into that. I did exactly as I pleased. There were a lot of instances that I used as a justification for my behavior. But the first time I picked up a drink in my life, I was about 16, like a proper drink, you know. And I had a particular friend who also, again, I thought was a very good friend for me. And turns out that it was a very toxic relationship. But that particular evening, when I picked up a drink, I couldn't put it down. Everybody else could do it, and they were okay with that, and have a little bit of a hangover the next day, and that bug bit me, and it changed how I felt, because I was out, and I could suddenly converse with people, I could dance, I could do everything, because I've got 2 left feet. I can't dance drunk or sober, but boy, do I believe it when I'm like that. And I felt like the world was suddenly opened up, you know, and I could fit in, and I could do the things that I felt would help me to be accepted, and it wasn't really the case at all. So yeah, the next couple of years, it's not like I was a hardened drinker, but I knew the feeling that gave me, and that sort of freedom that it helped me to experience. So over the years, when I was in that particular relationship, I eventually got to the point where I knew enough was enough, and I packed my bags and I walked out. But I was too proud to go back home and say, like, I was wrong, because that's words that weren't part of my vocabulary. I couldn't say that to my family. I was too arrogant, I was too proud to do that kind of thing. So instead, I decided to be willful and take on the world by myself, and it was difficult. I still sort of stayed in the relationship on and off because I didn't know how to break those ties that I'd formed. But I know that when I moved into my own place for the first time, that's when I really started to pick up. And I hid that for a long time. I would literally leave work and, sorry, a bit of a dry mouth. I would start drinking on the way home, and that's the honest truth. It started with one or two, and then eventually that escalated. And then I moved from home to home because nothing ever really sort of satisfied me. I was either too far from work, or it wasn't affordable, or it wasn't big enough, and it was just all about me and getting something a little bit more. And I had decent jobs over the years. You know, I can't complain about that. I was very fortunate because I don't have a degree or a qualification, but I've got the experience, and I managed to always have a door kind of open for me and get me into a position that was good for me. And I always was the one who, I wasn't never satisfied. That's the bottom line. I was never satisfied with what I had. So yeah, I moved around a hell of a lot. I think over a period of a few years, I must have had about 6 or more different homes that I lived in. And every single one that I went to, it seemed to get a little bit worse. I wasn't the girl who sat at the pub on a Friday night and drank. I was the person who drove to the bottle store straight from work, went home, and sat at home by myself. I was what I termed a closet drinker, but I would never admit that to anybody else. And a lot of people used to say to me, like, do you drink by yourself? And I was, no, because my disease was rampant at the time, and it wanted to be hidden. I didn't want to expose that to people. I wasn't, like I say, I was too proud and too arrogant to reach out and say, like, I don't know how to cope with life, because I didn't. And it's a hard reality for me because I've always felt that I'm a pretty confident kind of person, and I can look after a home and I can hold down a job. But when it comes down to that, when everything sort of starts to crumble, I don't know how to cope, and that's when I turn to something that's going to change the way I feel. So it really did escalate. And I know when I went to treatment, they said to me, like, when did this really start? And I couldn't really pinpoint it. It took me a long time to be able to see the progression of leaving work and having a quart, or buying a bottle of wine and having it last for 2 days, to the point where I was buying 2 bottles of wine and finishing that by myself until eventually I would either pass out or fall asleep from it, and still manage to get up the next day and go to work for quite a long time. That's quite a long period of time, so I didn't really feel like there was a problem. I was maintaining it, and you know, that's what normal people do. In my opinion, that's what, I mean, who doesn't do that? And that's just how it was for me. And it did progressively get worse and worse and worse, until eventually I moved up to a little place in Assegai. And that feeling of loneliness really, really kicked in. In the many years, I think it was 2011 that I first moved out by myself, I have never ever had one single person over for a visit because I was too ashamed. I never invited people into my home. I never would say, like, I didn't have friends. I wouldn't say, like, come over for dinner or whatever the case may be, because I was happier to go home, sit with my glass of wine or my bottle of wine or whatever I was having and just be by myself. And I was happy in my own company, yet I absolutely hated my own company. It was horrible. I had my dogs and my cat, and that was me. You know, when you start talking to the dogs and expecting a little bit of an answer, you know you've got a serious problem. But I didn't see that. And I think I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by people who, I wouldn't call them friends, they were other tenants in the house next door to me who could see that there was a problem, you know. They could see, you know, I would get home and sit and do what I wanted to do, and I would listen to them having their nice little banter between them as a couple, and I'd always get angry, like, why are they so happy? You know, like, these people are so normal. So it used to really bug me that they were happy on a daily basis and laughing, and I would be sitting by myself. And I got myself into a fair amount of trouble. My cars took quite a bashing over a period of time, but I also, again, I didn't see that as a problem. It was fixable. I had insurance, sorted it out, and I never learned from the consequences of my actions. I would just pick up the next day, sort of now to drown my sorrows about what had happened, pick up again and carry on that cycle. It was a very delusional world to live in, and I didn't see the damage that I was causing. Not just to me and my family, it just to the people around me, like to my neighbours. The kind of stress and trauma that they must have been going through watching this on a daily basis, because they can see, you know. And then towards the end of 2016, I had not gone to work. I think it might have been a Monday or a Friday. I'm not sure. But I hadn't gone to work because I was in no state to go to that office. I knew better. It was one of those, if I walk into the office like this, there's going to be huge consequences. So I chose to stay at home. And I chose to stay at home and not tell my family, because I knew they'd stress and worry. And then, you know, I'd tell them that I'm sick, and then it was just this horrible cycle for me. And I got a phone call in the morning from my mom to say that they were on their way to fetch me, and I couldn't understand this. And obviously my fear and my panic kicked in, because I knew that the walls and the pretense that I'd built up for so long, and what I thought I was hiding very well, had just come crumbling down, and there was no more hiding and no more denying it. So they fetched me and packed the dogs in the car. My dad drove my car up to Underberg, and about a week later I went into a treatment centre up there. It was supposed to be 3 weeks. I spent 2 weeks because I got very, very ill while I was up there. And I found myself in a coma for quite a long period of time. I had encephalitis and a few other things, which I don't think they could really pinpoint, but it was touch and go. I won't go into all the graphic details, but I woke up. When I did come around, I was in what one of the sponsors told me was almost like a drug-induced coma, drug-induced psychosis, and I was mad. Nothing was real. I've been through a lot of scary things, a lot of accidents and a lot of trauma and things like that, but that to me was when my mind is not in the right place. It was absolutely terrifying. But again, I'm quite a survivor. I don't know how I've survived for 35 years when I think of all the things that I've done, but I came through it, and I got back on the bus, and I went out actively looking for work, and I found myself a decent job in Underberg because I had decided to stay up there. My parents had welcomed me home. And I did okay for a little bit, a very short little bit, but I did, and I held it together, and eventually I deluded myself into believing that, because in those days I wasn't an alcoholic, I mean, like, I didn't want to admit that to myself, that I'd be okay and that I could manage it. And I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. In my head it was okay, I can still go and have a glass of wine or do whatever. There's no need, because now I know what I need to do and I know how dangerous it is. And that very soon spiraled out of control again. Once again, I took my will into my own hands and I moved out, thinking that I had a handle on it, and I really didn't. And I turned back into that same closet drinker, and the lies and the deceit and the hiding and sneaking around, sort of, it spiraled very quickly. Which I can see now is because this disease progresses so quickly, and before you know it, where I'm taking one step, it's taking 3 steps, and it's always ahead of me, constantly, all the time, and it will lead me into that place where I'm completely delusional and I have no idea, and I'm not even aware in the slightest little bit that it's having an effect on my life. But I did, and not so long after that, I met my current partner, who's been a saving grace in my life, thank God for him. And I don't think at that stage that he had any idea just how bad it was. I didn't hide the fact that I'd been into a treatment centre. Probably a little bit manipulative of me, probably very manipulative, because it was sort of like cover up the patches and make everybody think it's okay and I can carry on doing what I need to do, you know. But behind closed doors, I was a wreck, I really was. And then it led to the point where I'd moved house again, because that's what I tend to do. And he was staying with me, which is it was a huge dishonesty, which I had to eventually expose to my family later on. And I carried on, and it spiraled out of control very, very quickly. I walked out of my job because my boss had accused me of drinking on the job, and I was adamant that I hadn't, because I hadn't been drinking on the job, but I'd been drinking the night before. And it was very obvious to everybody else that I obviously clearly came to work smelling of alcohol, not myself, and that's how it was. And in that moment, because they're attacking my disease and attacking my sort of privacy or these things that I've built up, I refused to go for a breathalyzer, because I think also my fear kicked in. What happens if it's still in my system from the night before, and then it looks like I've been drinking, and my head just goes round and round and round mad, and I'm the type, I will just pack up my stuff and I'll go. And that's what I did. And again, it was the boss's fault, you know. I called him all sorts of names under the sun because it was him and he was picking on me, and that's how I felt. I needed somebody to blame for my own mess ups, so I blamed him. And then shortly after that, I started to work with my partner, which was, for me, it was great, because I suddenly realized that I didn't technically have a boss and I could do what I needed to do. And my lies and my deception got even deeper and deeper and deeper, to the point where eventually he came to me and he said to me, like, you need to go back into treatment. So I did. I went back to the same treatment center for what they call a 5-day top-up. It gets the audience every time. It was, yeah, it was mad. But it was a great 5 days. It was like, take my cell phone away from me, I can go. I ate like a queen, I did absolutely nothing for 5 days. I was bored out of my mind because I wanted to go back, because my obsession was back to where I wanted to be. And when I walked out of that center, the first thing I did was drink. That's the truth. But there was a blessing that came from that experience, in that on the Wednesday night they had an NA meeting, our sister fellowship in the center. And in my moment of boredom, I decided I've got absolutely nothing else to do, so I might as well go and see what it's all about, which is where I met Miranda. And after that, I left, and I sort of justified my drinking in that I was going to a meeting on a Monday or Tuesday, whichever day it was, and I was a mess. I was quite a piece of work. I would go there and claim my sobriety, and I suppose I hadn't been drinking before the meeting, but I might have been drinking in the morning, so that was my justification for it. It was all completely crazy. It was a good excuse because I knew I had it all mapped out. The bottle store closed at 6:30, and I could get there before that, and then after the meeting, drink, and then sometimes just never ever get home. That was the bottom line. And it caused a huge amount of panic for the people in my life, but I didn't see that. Most of the time, because I didn't remember it, I wasn't even aware of it. I'd wake up in my bed and that's where I'd be, and it would be great. And I could never understand all the fuss that everybody was causing around it. In hindsight, it was almost quite tragic. I'd hate to have to watch somebody else do that, because it must be heartbreaking. But I did that, and they speak of this golden thread, and this is where it sort of led me, because I got to the point where I'd been given notice on my house because the people were moving back in, and I really had no other option except to go back to my folks and say to them, please help me. The solution, which was probably a very good one, is that I'm lacking God in my life. And I'd sort of shut the door on that a long time ago, because, again, I blame God for a lot of things. I blame God for why me, and why am I going through this. When I woke up from my coma, I was almost angry with God that I'd been kept alive, but I knew that deep down there must be a purpose for me somewhere along the line. I wouldn't have survived numerous car accidents and motorbike accidents and traumas and near-death experiences to have absolutely no purpose in this life. What that purpose was, I battled to try and grasp, but I suppose the fact that I'm sitting and I'm alive and I've got a message to share of some sort shows me that God has a bigger plan for me than just being where I was or having a life ended very soon. Because the way I was going, I wouldn't say I was willing to die, but I also didn't want to live the way I was feeling, because it was horrible. It was it's like an abyss, it's like an empty part of your soul that's missing, and you don't know what to fill it with. You can fill it with money, you can fill it with alcohol, you can fill it with relationships, you can fill it with anything you like, but eventually that sort of seems to fall out the hole, and the hole comes back, and that's where I was at. So anyway, I moved back home, and again, my disease thought it was very smart, and I thought, I can do this, I can hide it, I can do what I need to on the sly, and put up a great pretense for everybody else to see on the outside. And I failed miserably at that. I really did. The one and only time that my dad gave me access to my vehicle, because I wasn't even responsible enough to drive my vehicle to town, because you wouldn't know when I was coming back. That's the truth. I just got myself a new horse, and I was very excited about it, and I went for a beautiful ride out in the country, sober, and what I did with that was I celebrated it with a drink, because it had been such a great morning, so why not celebrate it, and completely ruin everything. And I don't know how many hours it was, but I never got home. Well, I got home, but I had got my car stuck on the driveway, and it was just a huge disaster, the bits and pieces that I remember. And I'd become, it sounds terrible to say this, I'd become a blackout drunk. It didn't take very much at all, and I was gone. I wouldn't remember if the police had picked me up. I wouldn't remember how I got home. There were a lot of occasions where I'd wake up and somebody would be sitting there saying, "What are you doing?" And I wouldn't even remember how I got home, how I got into my bed, what time. I sometimes had to check on my phone to see if it's 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. because I was like that. And it's difficult to sometimes admit to these things, but that was my truth. That's where I was. And I woke up the next morning after that, pretty stuck to my pillow. With a lot of people in this room will remember how I came into treatment. My eye was cut open, and I had a real shiner for the first time in my life. My lip was cut, and I had absolutely not a cooking clue what had happened. I had justifications in my head, but I only found out sort of months later what I'd done and just how bad it was. And I remember that guilt and that shame of having to wake up and walk through and face my parents at breakfast, and it was almost like a silent morning. They had very little to say. But the one thing I remember the most is hearing my mom on the telephone. I don't know who she was on the phone to. And hearing the pain in her voice, and she was crying on the phone, and she came to me, "You're going into treatment." And I said, "No, I'm over my dead body. I'm not doing this again. I cannot, for the life of me, sit through another 3 weeks in treatment." And she almost laughed at me. She kind of laughed at me through her pain and her anger and said, three weeks? No. You're going for 3 months. And I was mortified. I mean, I've got stuff to do in life. Like, I've got this wonderful, so much going on for me. Like, I've got no job. I've got my relationships on the rocks. I've got no money. My car's been taken away from me. Like, but don't put me into treatment for 3 months because, I've got stuff to do. Anyway, I conceded defeat in that moment because I realized that I'd tried everything else. It clearly wasn't working. I couldn't do it by myself. I needed some kind of help. So I went into treatment by the grace of my family, who had made a plan to obviously financially get me there. And those 3 months turned into, I remember sitting with my sponsor saying, "But I'm running out of time. Like, I've only got 3 months." She said, "No, you've got 4. I said, "Okay, 4 months." And then my 4 months turned into 8 months. And eventually I got to the point where I thought they might actually, well, one of the sponsors did eventually say, "Just pack your stuff and go. It's time for you to go now, And I went into treatment, and I was adamant. There was no ways. I didn't want to stay in Scotland necessarily. Gave my will for this. And my one roommate said to me, "Hey, guess what? They're opening up a halfway house for girls." And I looked at her and I said, "You're mad. There's no ways. I'm willing to do anything, but I'm not willing to do that." And she sat there very quietly, and she said to me, "Oh, that shows your willingness. How badly you really want this." And she was 100% right. And I decided in that moment that if that was an option for me, that's what I'd do. I had to do absolutely whatever it took. So I went into treatment. Treatment was relatively smooth sailing for me. In 8 months, I think we had this concern group. I think I got concerned 2 or 3 times, which is concerning in itself because I'm full of faults and I'm full of defects. But I'm an alcoholic and I'm very manipulative, and I can put up a good show for people. And eventually I went out into the real world. I found myself a job, and I moved into the halfway house, and it was a huge change for me. But it's a blessing because it's shown me my reality. It's given to me on a silver platter on a daily basis, because my disease tells me that I'm 100% and I'm good to go, and I'm doing everything right, and then somebody gives me my reality, and all those walls are broken down, and I realize that I'm still just an alcoholic, like I'm going to be for the rest of my life, and that I've got a lot of work to do. I've got a list of defects as long as both my arms put together. I'm selfish, and I'm arrogant, and I'm self-centered, and I don't make it about other people on a daily basis, and I feel like I do, but I realized that I don't. And it was when one of the sponsors who comes down to the group said to me, "Get up and leave this group. You're not welcome here. You have no right to be here." But all my reality came crashing down, and I realized that I need help. I can't do this by myself. I found a new sort of love and passion for people, because I've never been a people person. Put me in a room full of animals and I can do it all day, but ask me to help a person, I'm like, oh, it's such a chore, you know. That's how I've always been, because I am so selfish, and I don't look at the next person, and I won't even notice that the person next to me is suffering, or that they might have had a bad day. And it's taken a lot for me to have to take the time out of my precious schedule in life, and make it about other people. And today I love it. You know, my sponsor said to me a while ago, she said, you know, the only way you're going to be able to do this is if you stop what you're doing and you make your recovery in AA the center of your world, and Kristin fits in around that. Because right now, Kristin is the center of your world, and you sort of slot people in, and you slot AA in, and you do what you need to do when you need to do it, and you can't. It's all or nothing. You've got to have that foot to the pedal 110% all the time. It's full throttle or it's nothing. So today I sit here. I've got 2 wonderful roommates who, when I go home, always ask me about my day, and I try to do that for them as well. And they call me out of my stuff. They tell me when I'm being rude, or I'm arrogant, or I'm not okay, or if I'm isolating, because I'm the world's greatest isolator. Like I said, I hate my own company, but I do very well with it, and I am very quick to do that. And what I've realized is that if I isolate, I'm going to be in that boat all by myself, and it's sinking very quickly, and there's nobody there to help scoop out the water and to keep me afloat. And I've got to do the same in turn for other people. And it hasn't always been an easy lesson for me, but working this program, realizing that for the first time in my life that I'm completely powerless over this. I have no control over it. I have no control over the people around me. I really have no control over this disease. And, you know, they often talk about the spiritual malady, and that's what I have. Like, I shut that door a long time ago. And when I walked into treatment, the first thing that I heard was the God word, and I thought, oh no, this is not going to work. But I said something to someone the other day, and I really hate to admit this, but my mother is always right. She was right about my relationship. She said to me, "You're in a very dangerous turf. You need to get out." And only in hindsight can I look back and say it was very dangerous. It's led me where I've been. But I've lacked God in my life. And today, I might not be active in religion at the moment, but it's baby steps for me. And I find my home when I'm in these rooms, and there's so many people here, all with different understandings of it, but they've all got the same drive and the same goal, and that's to stay sober just for today. And that's the most important thing for me. I couldn't do it without the God of my understanding, because that's the term we use. Everybody's going to have a different understanding of it. The God that I believe in isn't punishing me. He's not trying to put me in a bad position. All he's doing is giving me love and support to get through this and to try and live my life to the best of my ability on a daily basis with the principles that I know are right, because that's what it all comes down to, is the spiritual principles that we've got. And yeah, I'm very grateful to be here. I don't know if I've still got time, but it's been a life-changing sort of experience for me. I wouldn't be here without those people that I had all those resentments towards back at home. You know, the people that I felt they were cramping my style. You know, they were interfering. But through it all, they've loved me and they've pushed me and they've had faith and they've believed in me. And a lot of them are sitting in this room today. And I wouldn't be here. I don't know if I'd be alive. I probably would have done something, not intentionally, but I was on very dangerous ground. And it is only, like that sign says, but for the grace of God, that I'm still here and that I'm alive. And I've got an opportunity to try and make it about other people and to try and share a message, because I always believed that I was alone, but there's a lot of people like me out there. And I'm very blessed and very grateful to have the opportunity to be in recovery. I never thought that I'd sit here a year later, because Miranda will vouch for this. I couldn't stay clean and sober for 2 days was my max. Like, it was really, and then I was ripping my hair out. But it's a freeing feeling, and it's wonderful to be surrounded by people, and to have a sponsor that I can turn to at any time and who guides me and doesn't judge me. I don't feel like when I sit here in this chair that people in this room judge me at all. And that's always been my biggest fear, is being judged by other people. And I don't have that today. And it's a very freeing and peaceful feeling to have, when you're serene and you can enjoy people's company and know that you've always got that love and support and a program to work, because there's a lot of people out there who don't have this gift. And it's been a gift that I'm very, very privileged to have, and there's no words that can describe it. So thanks for being here. It's quite overwhelming to have such a big room, and thanks for letting me share.